January 14th, 2024. Live streaming from a distant galaxy. This is the world's most controversial podcast, the Doomsy McDoomscroller Show, a philosophical science fiction series featuring realistic futurology and refreshingly heretical commentary on the news. And the first article we're taking a look at today, I just say me, Doomsy. And why say look, right? This is a podcast. The most controversial podcast in the world. And why is that? Because Doomsy don't sugarcoat. Doomsy dares to criticize the culture to which 8 billion of you belong. And I know that which I criticize because I used to be part of it. I use second person plural and possessive to, I'm talking about your culture now because it's been so long for me since I've been on Earth. It's nice to be freed from the shackles. I mean, I want to get back, see family and friends, of course, and actually I'm out here to save family and friends. It's kind of a mission, scouting mission. And so I'm looking to get back, but in the meantime, I'm no longer part of it. I'm out of Shawshank. I had to leave the frickin' planet to get away from civilized culture, from the dominant culture. From the biggest stampede in the Milky Way's history of biological organisms, maybe? I don't even know where the Milky Way is. I'm in some strange galaxy right now. And I'm reading headlines like this, which show a complete and total cluelessness by these scientists. Total cluelessness. I mean, this cannot be right. It just can't be. It almost says nothing while also being wrong and being misleading. This headline, this article. But it's also kind of like, tell us you don't know what the problem is without telling us you don't know what the problem is. But anyway, like right at the top left, I mean, it starts out with bullshit, with ignorance. And it's not a lie, because a lie means someone knows the truth. They're trying to deceive people. And these scientists aren't doing that, and we don't need to name these people. We'll read the article. Their names may come up, but a lot of scientists make these mistakes, have these errors in their head, or are at a complete and total loss for what's really driving all of these problems. But right here is part of the hurdle. Human, quote, behavioral crisis, quote, at root of climate breakdown, say scientists. Okay, human. First of all, human? You can blame this on the DNA. This is to be blamed on the species, huh? I wonder even if these aren't American scientists, or if their organization isn't headquartered in the USA, I would think that they have some American scientists. And if they don't have these people in their group, these Americans, they must be aware of America. I say that because an American scientist, I would think that you did okay in school. I mean, you went to class. You had to go to all your classes. I mean, you had to pass. You had to graduate and get into university. You did have U.S. history class, didn't you? I mean, you did take a U.S. history class, right? I mean, that's like recent history about what your culture is all about. Civilized culture. I'm not talking American culture. Civilized culture. Civilized with a capital C. The culture to which 8 billion of you belong. And that one big stampede, east and west together, just heading towards ecological catastrophes as fast as you possibly can. That culture. So, you got to be aware, humans are on North America for a long, long time before y'all got there. Or I should say before your ancestors got there. They had all kinds of behaviors. And hey, let's go beyond land mass. Okay, let's just go back in time. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, 300,000 years. People, ancestors, I mean, I can say, I mean, I'm part of the species. I'm no longer part of your culture, but I'm still part of your species, our species, last time I checked. No, this is a strange universe I'm in. I think the stars actually orbit the planets. Anyway. So they were your ancestors that were actually human go back 300,000 years. Anatomically modern human beings. 300,000 years. Civilized culture, 10,000 years. Dozen thousand, maybe, give or take. And so, for 300,000 years, humans, they lived without climate breakdown. And yet now all of a sudden you have one? Because of why? Industrial Revolution? Is that what you think it is? This is like, they think it's because, we'll scroll and get into it, but basically, it's, people are being exploited. And marketing and consumerism is what's driving bad behavior. It's ridiculous. You're right at the top here. Okay, they explain their ignorance. Human behavioral crisis. What? The behavior Okay, it's behavior of just your culture. But you got to explain the behavior, and that's what they don't even get to. For Doomsy, it's obvious. And for the million people, there's at least 1 million people, it's obvious. The root of the climate breakdown is civilized culture. It's your culture. That's what drives the human behavior of 8 billion people. The behavior is causing the climate breakdown, the behavior of your culture. But then, it goes nowhere if you just say, well, a behavioral crisis is what's causing the behavior that causes climate breakdown. Okay, you still haven't gone anywhere. What have you found? What is causing the crisis? The behavioral crisis that is driving behavior, and there's nothing. They got no explanation for that. They got none. You know why? Because they think, just like billions upon billions of others in the stampede, they think that what y'all do is part of your DNA. Yeah, scientists think that. That's how much in error these scientists are. That's how powerful mythology is. It's made these people blind to what's really causing the problems. How did things get to be this way? They cannot figure it out. Human behavior? What kind of answer is that to the question, how did things get to be this way? Human behavior? Yeah, we know that that's part of it, but why? Why are people behaving this way? Why are people destroying the environments, the habitats in which their survival depends? Why are people doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? I wondered why I was doing that when I was on Earth. It used to bother me a lot. Even if I tried to not think about it. If I wanted to eat, there was so much that I ate or drank that required plastic. It was always bugging me in the back of my mind. Because I knew what I was doing. I knew where that plastic was going. Just a tiny, tiny fraction to being recycled. It bothered me. Why the behavior? Oh, crisis. Just either call the behavior a crisis or say a crisis driving the behavior. Still, what is a crisis? What is it? They say, okay, let's have a look here. Because I'm telling you, consumerism, marketing, exploitation, that's just not a satisfactory answer. Okay, so let's look at the headline again. Human behavioral crisis at root of climate breakdown, say scientists. New paper claims unless demand for resources is reduced, many other innovations are just a sticking plaster. That's what the Brits call a bandage. Band-aid. And really, this headline, this whole thought here, it's paradoxically, it's both utopian, foolish fantasy, and also dystopian. how do I turn that into an adjective? Dystopianly depressing. It's utopian to think that, only if everyone was on their best behavior, the people who are getting used to destroy the planet, the people who are using them, who are exploiting, the people who exploit the earth, help them exploit the earth, or they don't even really bring the earth into it. There's a lot they don't address in this article. So, unless demand for resources is reduced. Yeah, let's get into the article here. First paragraph. Record heat, record emissions, record fossil fuel consumption. 1 month out from COP28, the world is further than ever from reaching its collective climate goals. At the root of all these problems, according to recent research, is the human behavioral crisis. Dun, dun, dun. A term coined by an interdisciplinary team of scientists. We've socially engineered ourselves the way we geoengineered the planet, says Joseph Merz, lead author of a new paper which proposes that climate breakdown is a symptom of ecological overshoot, which in turn is caused by the deliberate exploitation of human behavior. Caused by the deliberate exploitation of human behavior. These people are totally unaware. Okay, now this is news. I found this. Where was this? This is on The Guardian. I think this is, here we go. Saturday, the 13th of January. So this is from, yesterday. So this is news. This counts for doom scrolling for today. But this it links to this original paper. Is it this page? No, not this one. Where is it? I think this one. Here we go. And we're going to have a look at this. This is from last year. So somehow found its way across the desk of some writer at The Guardian. And so they did an article on this. And I'm not sure if this is the original place for this. And world scientists warning that behavioral crisis driving ecological overshoot. So here we're looking at the abstract. Oh, this is on sagepub.com. sagepub.com. Abstract. Previous anthropogenic ecological overshoot has been identified as a fundamental cause of the myriad symptoms we see around the globe today, from biodiversity loss and ocean acidification to the disturbing rise in novel entities in climate change. In the present paper, we have examined this more deeply and explore the behavioral drivers of overshoot, providing evidence that overshoot is itself a symptom of a deeper, more subversive modern crisis of human behavior. Yeah, but they never get to that. Okay, back to the article. We work to name and frame this crisis as the human behavioral crisis and propose the crisis be recognized globally as a critical intervention point for tackling ecological overshoot. We demonstrate how current interventions are largely physical, resource-intensive, slow-moving, and focused on addressing the... Okay, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. We argue that even in the best-case scenarios, symptom-level interventions are unlikely to avoid catastrophe or achieve more than ephemeral progress. We explore 3 drivers of a behavioral crisis in depth: economic growth, marketing, and pronatalism. This is just, these people are disconnected from reality. It's nice that they want to get beyond symptom level interventions, but you get there. Get there. Jeez Louise. You know, it's amazing to me how some of the smartest people in your culture just have a complete and total disconnect with reality when it comes to population growth and food production. You just can't put that together. Look, here's what I mean. Did you see the Avengers movies? The whole Avengers thing, Thanos, right? Thanos was the bad guy. That meant well, because he wanted to decrease the demand on resources, right? So he halved the population everywhere. So what? That's no solution. He halved the population. Let's take the current population instead of like the date when those Avengers movies actually came out. Okay, you're stampeding right now at 8 billion. Okay, 8 billion. 47 years ago, there were 4 billion of y'all. 47 years before that, 2 billion. So doubled in 47 years, then doubled again in another 47 years. Okay, 47 years ago, you were 4 billion, right? So you got to 8 billion. Now, Thanos thought 8 billion was too much. So he got the stones, right? He got the Infinity Stones, snapped his fingers, and set y'all back to 4 billion. Oh, wonderful, right? Just everything's going to be hunky-dory now at 4 billion. So much, so many resources for us all to share, right? That was the solution of Thanos. What does that do? How is that even close to a solution? 47 years ago, you were at 4 billion. So if Thanos snaps his fingers and you go from 8 billion back to 4 billion, I'd just give it another 47 years. The 4 billion that were in 1975, was it 77, 76, and there were 4 billion. That was 4 billion people of civilized culture doing what civilized culture has people do. Thanos didn't change your culture. There was no change in behavior. Right? So you went from 4 billion to 8 billion because you were always increasing food production. You're constantly increasing food production. And that's hard work. That's like extra hard work. And obviously, right? I mean, what's better? I mean, what's easier? To produce just enough, or to produce a surplus? And as food tends to do, invariably, it turns into animals, turns into organisms. Food becomes people's. You know, if it's rice or corn or wheat or whatever your favorite foods are, food becomes people. So there's a complete disconnect there. They aren't thinking. They talk about population growth and resources. Where do they mention food production? It's not in there. I've already been through the articles. I'm not going to torture you through every word. Now, look at this quote here. This guy, one of them pulls out from, let's see. We seek to highlight a critical disconnect. Yeah, you're unaware of the disconnect, buddy. People. That is an ongoing societal gulf in communication between those that know, such as scientists working within limits to growth, and those members of the citizenry, largely influenced by social scientists and industry that must act. Okay, then they have a quote here from Edward Bernays, Propaganda. Was the work in which he wrote this, 1928. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. Okay, that was the quote. Now, Doomsy agrees with part of this. Okay, your minds are molded by men you've never heard of. But your minds are molded by men who are long since gone. They're dead. They've been dead for 10,000 years. They've been dead. 12,000. These aren't the men you've never heard of. They're not like, there's no shadow government in anything. There's nobody working behind the scenes to manipulate any of that stuff. They don't know what's going on either. These scientists, they don't know. These scientists, they cannot connect. Except when it comes to laboratory conditions, then it's very obvious to them. Food production, food consumption, and population growth. But when it comes to humans, for some reason, it escapes them. So these scientists who use logic and evidence to come up with their worldview, they don't know what's going on. They can't see the real driver of all the destruction. So why would someone like Putin or Republicans or some imam, why would they know? They don't know what's going on either. They're not even leaders. They're caught in the stampede. The same stampede 8 billion are caught in. They just have comfortable seats. They're not leading anything. They don't know. So, I agree with this quote from this work, Propaganda, to an extent. You're governed, your minds are molded, your tastes formed largely by men who are gone. They've been dead for 10,000 years. It's culture. Cultural mythology is what does it. Here's a quote from Hart Hagen. Not sure who that is, environmental journalist. Okay, let's look at what he has right and what he has wrong here. Here's a quote. A species causing the extinction of 150 species per day doesn't need more energy to do more of what it does. Okay, let's opine on that, all right? Now, certainly, I get part of this. Doomsy does. So what I mean is, cold fusion reactor in every town? Some new technology that just clean and green energy. These just imagine some cold fusion reactors. Not going to help you. That's not going to help you. Collapse is still going to happen. It would still be going on. You're collapsing. And if anything, it could make things worse. You don't need more energy to do more of what you do. Where Hart Hagen has it wrong is Hart Hagen is blaming the species, the whole species, for causing the extinction of 150 species per day. It's not your species' fault. It's civilized culture. And really, that's good news. That's good news. Because you can't just undo millions of years of evolution. You can't rewrite the entire DNA strand of 8 billion people. That's not going to happen. But you can give up a culture. You can walk away from a warmongering, pyramid building, pharaoh fostering culture. That can be done. That's the good news. The good news here is Hart Hagen's wrong. I mean, at least so inaccurate as to be detrimentally so. So this quote should read, the quote's a quote. But the thinking, accurate thinking should go, a culture causing the extinction of 150 species per day doesn't need more energy to do more of what it does. And it's culture that has all of you held captive, compelling you to destroy the planet because of a delusion of grandeur. You think you are like gods, and you need kings to prove it. You need a royal class among you to justify this smugness, this spiritual superiority instilled in your beliefs by 10,000-year-old mythology that you're there to conquer the planet. And that's not, they don't connect with that. Where's the connection? Human behavior crisis at the root of a climate breakdown? That tells you nothing. That's what is that essentially? What, money is the root of all evil? You know how you get people to build pyramids? You know how you get people to work? You lock up the food. Own the food. Food ownership. Land ownership is food ownership, is planet ownership. That's the fundamental belief of your culture. But all land, all food under ownership, lock it all up, produce surpluses of food, lock it up, force people to work to get at it. Keep producing food surpluses that fuel population growth. Because you think a planet is something to be conquered. You think it can be conquered. Well, we got news for you now, right? It can't. Those lightning bolts, the hurricanes, earthquakes, floods. Yeah, that's not angry gods. Those are not like personalities that you can appease, make them happy so those things don't happen so much. That's the earth quaking. That hurricane comes from the planet that you're on. You think you're this high and mighty species, that everything there exists for you. Everything on earth is a resource just for you. According to your mythology. It's not working out so well. They say this paper is not intended to be an exhaustive roadmap to address the behavioral crisis. Instead, it should be taken as a call to action for interdisciplinary collaboration to achieve just that. In this paper, aside from reproductive behaviors, which we mentioned below, our focus is largely confined to socially constructed attitudes, values, and behaviors that encourage unnecessary personal consumption and which have led the world into a state of overshoot. This focus is critical because, to date, a mere quarter of humanity, the wealthy quarter, is responsible for 74% of excess energy and material use. This, when taken alone, is sufficient to propel the human enterprise into overshoot. There you go. So, the wealthy are a problem. It's a money thing, right? Money is the root of all evil. Come on. You know, those people, they're trapped, they're caught in the stampede too. They're really comfortable. They have lots of security. In fact, all of y'all provide the materials they need to really feel like gods. But they're in the same culture as you are. So they destroy the earth more, the excess energy and stuff, right? But everyone's destroying the earth. Or not destroying the planet, you're destroying the habitats in which large mammals need to survive. Now, by the way, y'all are large mammals. You're not going to be able to destroy a planet. Earth can make the Mississippi River flow backwards. Can you do that? No, you can't. So that means the entire basis for civilized culture is a bunch of bullshit. You can't conquer the planet. Who knows? Who knows how it got started? Well, I guess we can know. It got started by killing people. We know that about civilized culture. You know, how are they not looking at culture when it's just obvious? Your history, the history of farming, how did it spread? These academics, they know. They write the books, they give the lectures, they do the research, they tested me with exams about that stuff. The facts are there. These scientists, these experts, they know that civilized culture spread across the globe by way of genocide and slavery. And yet, civilized culture is not a suspect? But it's not to be blamed for this disaster? this freaking catastrophe called civilized culture is bringing ecosystems to their knees. And it spread, this culture of yours spread planet-wide by way of genocide and slavery. Just very recently. I mean, modern recorded history very recently spread across North America doing that. Just a killing and a murdering and a killing and a murdering and enslaving and a murdering and a killing. That's what you farmers do. Holy war agriculturalists. So that's how and I'm not hating on America. Doomsy don't hate America. America is just another civilized nation. Every civilized nation is founded upon genocide and slavery. Every one. And yet that's not even on the list of what things should we consider for, the terrible state of affairs in ecosystems nowadays. Maybe the thing that makes life suck for billions of people also makes life suck for countless billions of other animals. You just can't put those things together. That's how powerful mythology is. The mythology that says humanity is civilization. That's why these scientists, they can't get to the actual root of what's it called? Climate breakdown. The climate breakdown. That's why they can't actually get, because to blame humans, they've already kind of been doing that. To them, that's a no-go. That goes nowhere. But they're essentially blaming humanity. That's what makes this article, the study, that's what makes it just ineffective. It's just not gonna. What's it gonna do? It's not gonna do anything. It's dystopian in that, humans are to blame. That's kind of what it's saying, right? Behavioral crisis. I mean, you can't behave like some other animal. You're human. You have to have human behavior. So there's this behavioral crisis that's to blame. So that's on you, right? That's your species. That's dystopian. Because, you're just, guess you're all just fucked, Well, what can you do? I mean, that pretty much has these scientists, or most likely atheists, agreeing with the Salvationists, the religious zealots. The people who idolize literature that forbids idolatry. Those people. Right? I mean, humans are to believe. Ain't nothing can be done. Right? That's just humans. Broken monkeys. Well, maybe. You could call yourself broken monkeys if you did pop into existence 10,000 years ago as farmers, and that's what your lot in life in the universe is as creatures. As if that's all you've been doing, but it's not. That's you've been there 300,000 years. Civilized culture comes along. Genocide and slavery becomes the calling card for civilized folk. They're in the Fertile Crescent. 10,000 years later, overnight, really, in the scale of geological time, pretty much next week in the scale of species time, humanity's time. So this is where the realistic futurology comes in. It's over. All right? Civilized culture is done. It's a sinking ship. It's a stampede headed for a cliff. It's never been sustainable. Are you watching or are you listening? Look, if you're watching, well, if you're just listening, you can't see the scrolling text. I'll tell you. I can tell you what it says. 8 billion people. 8 billion of y'all are currently held captive by the culture of maximum conflict. Mythology, 10,000-year-old mythology, is what holds billions of people captive in the culture of maximum child abuse, in the culture of maximum violence, maximum misogyny. That's your culture. You're held there by mythology. And then you want to blame the pharaohs that you have held up, that you've elevated to the top of your socioeconomic hierarchies. Why, those pharaohs are there because that's the system in which you live. You are the cogs in that machinery that produces pharaohs. And the machines always do that. And it doesn't matter if you want to build them with these parts. Oh, these are communist parts, or these are capitalist parts, and I got some socialist tools here. Let's make this machine. It's no matter what you call your economy in civilized culture, you get the neo-pharaohs. You have the royals. You have the socioeconomic hierarchy. You got the big classes, right? The peasants, the commoners, the bottom. And everyone up top, they're happy. They're happy to spark any kind of discussion that encourages commoners and peasants to hate each other. As I should say, commoners / peasants, right? The same thing. Get them to hate each other. They're fine with that. Just don't be looking upwards with your resentment. They probably aren't even thinking that. It's subconscious for them because they're trapped too. They're in the stampede. They don't know why. Look, when there's more plastic than fish in the oceans, I say when because it's not so much if at this point. Your stampede is pushing so hard. When there's more plastic than fish, that's going to affect everybody. No one's going to be eating at a seafood restaurant. Money is going to become worthless. Your culture cannot continue. There's going to be a huge collapse. Yeah, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta. Gen Beta's kids are not going to go to high school. No effing way. Certainly won't be going to college. A university degree will be worth nothing. Look what one little virus did to your supply chains and everything. What's going to happen when timber industry is bye-bye? Bye-bye seafood. Bye-bye timber. I mean, you have all these other problems. You know, I agree with them in this paper, like electric vehicles, that's not going to do jack squat for y'all. So in that article, they mentioned this population media center. So I went to its website. And I could dig and dig, but I'm not going to find it. They talk about population growth here. Look, 8 billion opportunities. 8 billion strong stampede. Why not that? 8 billion opportunities? 8 billion opportunities. My goodness. There's 4 billion. It used to be 4 billion in Doomsy's lifetime. 4 billion. I don't think anybody looked around and said, you know what the world needs? Twice as many people. That would just be great. Of course, now you get that with freaking Musk and Bezos. They want 1 trillion freaking warmongers building them pyramids. So it's just really strange, the disconnect. Human behavioral crisis at root of climate breakdown. They don't know. But I'll tell you what, there's a revolution going on right now, and millions of others know. A quote from the scientist: "We need to become mindful of the way we're being manipulated," says Mers, who's co-founder of the Mers Institute, an organization that researches the systematic causes of climate crisis and how to tackle them. Mers and colleagues believe that most climate solutions proposed so far only tackle symptoms rather than the root cause of the crisis. This, they say, leads to increasing levels of the 3 levers of overshoot: consumption, waste, and population. They claim that unless demand for resources is reduced, many other innovations are just a sticking plaster. We can deal with climate change and worsen overshoot, says Mers. They can worsen overshoot dealing with climate change. He says the material footprint of renewable energy is dangerously under-discussed. These energy farms have to be rebuilt every few decades. They're not going to solve the bigger problem unless we tackle demand. And how do you do that? How do you do that if you don't have the slightest connection to reality? Because there's got to be a difference in demand between a population of 4 billion and a population of 8 billion. Right? Isn't that the demand issue here? Let's look at that. Where's that question? Where's that investigation? To say, how did we go from 4 billion to 8 billion? In the same amount of time that you went from 2 billion to 4 billion. And I'm not talking about nitrogen and fertilizer and all that. Yeah, sure, that's some of it. But that's just how you use tech. That's just tech coming in right at the last moment to keep the exponential growth going. It's never going to continue. Civilized culture has never been, is not now, and never will be sustainable in any way, shape, or form. So, the tech, there's no, I agree with them here. There's no solution in hardware, software. Technology's not going to save you. But he says, unless we tackle demand, Okay, tackle demand. How are you going to tackle demand if you don't tackle what drove y'all to go from 4 billion to 8 billion? Okay, so that's not mentioned. He wants to tackle demand without tackling the thing that drove you from 4 billion to 8 billion. It's still going on. And it's a 10,000-year-old mythological belief that drives you to convert as much of the general biomass of the earth specifically into human flesh as fast as you can possibly do it. It's all about that fruitful multiplication. It's written in there. It's written in the world's most famous literature. And the most famous literature in your culture, civilized culture. Subdue. Have dominion over the earth. Fruitfully multiply. It's obviously culture is driving you to do this. You got the instructions. And of course, that story was originally told by murder victims. So they're just, they were just guessing what was going through the minds of holy war agriculturalists, aka, farmers, particularly the first farmers there in the Fertile Crescent. How do the pastoralists, people herding animals, how do they explain to their kids the massacres? Look at these people. Look at these nuts. These people just working their asses off. These crops trying to do everything they can to make all of this that we see wheat or rice or whatever it is. The fruitful multiplication. These people, they think their purpose is to conquer the planet, and they're killing us doing that. So they want to tackle the problem of demand, but yet isn't there an issue? They just say population growth. How do they not? People are made of food. Oh my gosh, it's just, I didn't see it for my whole life. But my whole life, I was completely oblivious to it. My whole life there on Earth. And then after about a million other people could see the bars of the cage, the mythology of your culture holding them captive, our culture at the time, when I was there. By the time about a million other people, they pointed it out. I was like, well, that's been right under my nose the whole time. Amazing how obvious it is. Once someone walks you through it, if you think, if you think 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4, you don't have to go much farther than that to understand what is really driving population. So, the good news here is that these scientists who think they're talking about something and they're really talking about nothing, because what can you do about human behavior? That's just more of the same. What we need a sermon. Some people need Well, they need a therapist. They just need to be nicer. That's utopian bullshit. The crisis is what driving behavior is what is at the root of climate breakdown. What's driving the crisis? And that's your culture. So that's the heresy, right? As it is in every episode of the Doomsy McDoomscroller Show. Civilized culture. It sucks. And the mythology of your culture makes you think that the only alternative is chaos, anarchy. When you know that that can't possibly be the case. If you have even the slightest connection to reality. Look, if you're one of those Protestants who think the earth is just 7,000 years old, it's going to be hard to convince you of anything. You're happy with a scapegoating scheme as your worldview. But if you acknowledge that, but everything in medical technology has come about as a result of learning about evolution, then humans have been around hundreds of thousands of years. And there were cultures. Look, it was not chaos and anarchy in North America when European farmers reached the continent. Before the genocide and slavery, it wasn't chaos. Yeah, but Doomsy, haven't you ever seen a Western? The Indians killed people. Or the Native Americans. Oh, and that's not happening now, huh? You don't have maximum violence. You're in a culture of maximum violence, maximum fear of that violence and insecurity. And you think that because humans are humans and they sometimes get in fights, even battles, groups of them, you think that things are better off now that you got the law, right? You got courts, you got lawyers and judges, and you got cages. Thousands and thousands upon thousands of cages that you can throw people into. That'll solve everything. And it's simple, right? Because no matter what, they go in a cage. No matter what the circumstances. Break the law, you get locked in a cage. Mother protecting her kids, kills some dude who attacked him and attacked a bunch of other kids. Now, obviously, she's protecting the whole neighborhood. She's protecting her kids. But, she broke the law. Put her in a cage. So, I think this thing, civilized culture, is just so great. It has nothing to do with peacefulness. It has nothing to do with being neighborly. It has nothing to do with being friendly. Civilized doesn't mean any of that. Civilized means, genocide and slavery. It means pyramid building, warmongering. It means filling the oceans with plastic as you pull more and more fish out of there. It means a forest that is home to millions of things should be wiped out so that there's one food only, one plant only, one organism allowed. It's your culture at the root of climate breakdown. So the good news is that when people of your culture got to anywhere, let's use North America because it was recent, they didn't find chaos and anarchy. It wasn't chaos and anarchy across North America. It was diversity. People living lifestyles of relative leisure. Yeah, they sometimes got in fights. They competed. That's what animals do everywhere in the universe. But they didn't have prisons. They didn't need prisons. They didn't need schools. You know what they had? They had fashion. They had fashion. They had dinner parties. So this whole idea, this unspoken mythology that it drives these scientists to be blinded to the fact that people can live without waging war constantly versus Earth. There's abundant evidence. So there's other cultures. There's sustainable cultures. Diversity existed before 8 billion of y'all running the stampede and wondering why it sucks. Well, the good news is, few and far between, but I'm hoping to maybe I can fire up this hyperspatial quantum entanglement engine. I want to make it jump into the future. I always get like boomerang back to a particular time. If I can get a glimpse sometimes, I've seen in parallel universes, there's no reason to have neo-pharaohs. You don't need a Musk. You don't need a Bezos. Those people are powerless. They are powerless to stop the revolution. They are unable to do it. They're not leaders of anything. And there's no leaders in the revolution. There's none. There's no leaders. Doomsy's certainly not a leader. I'm not even in the same galaxy. But there's no leaders to this revolution. You know the most powerful thing you can do? At this moment, at this stage of the revolution, one of the most powerful things anybody could do is to question the tenets of civilized culture. Break the hold that mythology has on you. To make you think that it's impossible to live without pharaohs, without a royal class. I tell you, 1 million people they're already talking about it. More and more are going to be talking about it. Doomsy certainly ain't going to shut up about it. On the daily so far now. Huh? Well, that's something different. If you got criticisms of the show, gosh, we didn't even get into it that deep. This article, ecological overshoot. I mean, that's definitely happening. They don't address it, though. If anybody ever wants to argue that, leave a message, leave a voice message. I'll be fair, but I would love to hear your here's what Doomsy's suggesting. If you really want to see something happen, like with this whole resources and demand, and here's what's going to happen. Food production is going to level out, and your population then will therefore level out, and that will be the end of civilized culture, the definite end, because you've been increasing food production. You've been increasing the production of food surpluses for 10 to 12,000 years, and always your population increases as a result of that increase in food surpluses. So look, you can voluntarily, you can just start talking about it and then just stop increasing the production of food surpluses. Nobody would be harmed. I'm telling you, if in 1975 you were producing the same amount of food in 1975, or in every year since 1975, the same amount that you produced in 1975, there'd be still just be 4 billion people. 4 billion people. What Doomsy's driving home is all excessive suffering on planet Earth is caused by civilized culture. If you got complaints, questions, opinions, www.doomsymcdoomscroller.com.